Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:06 this Christmas week, Christmas Eve, if you're playing that game. O'Connor and Company here live for you as you finish up all your Christmas to-dos. And by the way, Hanukkah also starts Wednesday,
That's
so
right.
if you're getting ready for your menorah and dreidel activities, we got you covered every morning, all week long. It's 6:35, David May of the Foundation of Defense for Democracies. 7:05, Joe DeGeneva. 7:35, Trevor Maddich on that's a gutsy win by your Commanders over those dreaded, hated Philadelphia Eagles yesterday in Landover. And then at 8:35, Susan Pariccio is going to sort of give us a wrap-up of what happened on the continuing resolution, on whether that closes the book on this Congress, which I believe it does, and looking forward to the brand-new Congress starting, well, in just 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. They'll be back. I'm Larry O'Connor. That's Patrice Onwuka. Merry Christmas, Patrice.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and everything. I'm not saying Happy Kwanzaa. I'm sorry, I'm not.
I always jokingly, half-mockingly say righteous Kwanzaa. If I were acknowledging Kwanzaa, I would want it to be righteous, Patrice. Am I doing it right?
I'm going to be canceled, so I'm just going to stop there.
Oh, that's never stopped you before.
You
Why
know,
we
right?
love you. That's why we love you. All right. So, Alejandro Mayorkas, he is your Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. He had to deal with a impeachment attempt this year that sadly never actually made it to the Senate floor for a hearing because Chuck Schumer blocked it all the way. Among other things,
Yeah.
it's really all he served this year in this election year was to block things in the Senate. But Alejandro Mayorkas sort of had an exit interview of sorts. One can point to him as a perfect representation of not just the incompetence, but actually the willful, deliberate neglect of basics in this country with border security and the horrific conditions that have been wrought because of the Biden-Harris-Mayorkas policies. Most specifically about the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of children who were just off the radar of Homeland Security.
Yes.
They've been handed over to unvetted adults in this country without any actual proof that they're family members. And Homeland Security just washed their hands of these kids. God knows what they're involved in. In fact, we know for a fact that many of them have been caught up in child labor, basic slavery situations,
Yes.
or human trafficking, sexual deviant behaviors that are unspeakable and unimaginable. And Mayorkas, well, listen to the tone of his voice, not to mention what he actually says to Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation. This is not sure what cut number this is. Oh, cut 6, it looks like. Here, let's listen to this.
Well, we
Do you
certainly, Margaret, we certainly have received reports of children being trafficked, even those as to whom we know where they are. That is outside the responsibility of the Department of Homeland Security.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we turn children over within 72 hours, as the law requires, to the Department of Health and Human Services, and then HHS places those children. Of course, we investigate cases of trafficking.
This is why people hate government.
That's
Patrice.
infuriating.
Yeah.
That is
So
infuriating.
you want to impeach somebody? Impeach Homeland Security. Impeach Health and Human Services. It's their fault, not mine. We'll talk to Joe
Passing the
DeGeneva
buck.
about that, by the way, coming up at 7. But yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this man, number one, these children should not be coming through our southern border. Number two, the policy shouldn't be a magnet to drag people to bring these children to the southern border. And number three, even if it's not on your to-do list or not on you're not required to look after little kids, I would think little kids matter enough for you to say, oh, well, let me work with HHS to make sure that these kids are not falling into the hands of sexual predators.
Exactly.
I mean, and frankly, I'm actually even more irate over, Margaret Brennan, who's interviewing him. She's like, yeah, oh, yeah.
Right.
As though it's no big deal. It's a huge deal.
Yeah, thank you. You should always be more angry at the media who carry the water and do the bidding of these evil human beings. But just again, the tone of the voice. Oh, yes, we have had, this cold and deliberate voice saying we have had reports of child trafficking, but that's not really our responsibility. What? This is a guy who is in charge of Homeland Security and law enforcement, and you know that if children are being trafficked in this country from other countries, they got here through your policies at the border,
Exactly.
But ultimately, that's not really our responsibility. I don't know. Maybe I'm me because I'm a human being with a heart and soul and some kind of conscience. But if I knew that children were being trafficked as a result of my job, my profession, and my responsibilities, I would actually be doing something about it. This is the first I've ever heard Alejandro Mayorkas even acknowledge that there's child trafficking. I would be standing on the rooftop of my building of Homeland Security in downtown Washington, D.C., screaming to anyone who's listened, there are kids in danger. Might not be my department's job, but let's do something about it, guys. But nothing.
And if he couldn't do something or get someone else to do something, including the President of the United States, step down and make a bigger statement. And then make a huge stink in the media.
That's right.
Because now you're no longer on the payroll. You don't have to say yes, sir. You can say whatever and expose it, but he's not going to do that.
Patrice, we have seen Tom Homan, the incoming border czar, break down in tears on national television talking about what's happening to these children. Do you think he cares whose responsibility it is? That's not my department. Sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. You need your ice water filled at your... That's not my table, but I'll find out who else can do this for you. Cut 7 here, Mayorkas explains how these, little blips on the radar, these little anomalies, hundreds of thousands of children... He explains how this can happen.
But there are children who are reunited with a parent here in the United States or a legal guardian, and they move. And sometimes the government loses track. Individuals do not comply with their reporting obligations or otherwise.
Unbelievable. This cold-hearted...
As though it's no big
30,000 feet attitude. And thank you, Margaret Brennan, because in pointing her out, Patrice, this is the moment where she leans forward and says, hold on, did you verify that these are family members or legal guardians of some sort? How did you verify that? In fact, I'm told all the time that these are undocumented people. So were they able to provide documents to you, these undocumented people, to prove that they're actually... And if you don't have proof, why are you handing over children to strangers who claim that they have some sort of legal responsibility? All of this is so wicked and so disgusting.
What comes to my mind is just the movie Sound of Freedom that looked at child trafficking.
That's right.
And it chills me. But there is something sick about many people in this country who have levers of power who actually, I don't know if they get off on this idea or if they just don't care, or frankly, they're just protecting other people who have more power that wield something over them. But what is happening to children it grieves God's heart. I'll put it that way.
Well said. And this is, Alejandro Mayorkas is the perfect, hapless, incompetent, if not absolutely, I'll use the word again, wicked representation of this entire debacle and lamentable experiment that we've just lived through for the last 4 years, known as the Biden-Harris administration. And there's going to be a lot of talk about Biden's legacy, and much of it will have to do with the fact that he was part of the greatest political scandal in American history, as we've learned so many more details about how mentally and physically incompetent and incapacitated he's been, and they've all covered up for him. But ultimately, because Joe Biden so wanted this job, and because Joe Biden pretended to the nation that he could heal our country, and that he lied about Charlottesville and lied about Trump and lied about the pandemic and lied because he wanted the power of the White House, well, good on you, Joe, because you wanted that power so bad, that means you've owned this legacy. When we learn what happened to these children under this administration, this is what we will think of now when we think of Joe Biden. We've got more on this coming up, as well as Joe DeGenova joining us to talk about the legal aspect and the despicable nature of what we just heard from Alejandro Mayorkas. And, oh, by the way, one other part of Biden and Mayorkas's and Harris's legacy on the border is all of the crime that has infiltrated American cities as a result of unvetted national security risks pouring through the border. And we just had the latest, most despicable example of that on a New York subway yesterday. And we'll tell you all about it in just 1 minute. But first, that minute's going to be filled here at 6:15. Kathy Hochul is the governor of the state of New York. She sort of inherited the job when Andrew Cuomo was drummed out of office, partly by her own staff, by the way. The behind-the-scenes intrigue there in Albany will never fully be brought to light because Democrats. But Kathy Hochul became the governor. Then she barely won in a year that she should have trounced in the midterms of 2022 against Lee Zeldin, a very strong challenge from Lee Zeldin, the Republican from Long Island, New York. He's now your Secretary of the EPA, right? The EPA Administrator, I think, is the appropriate title for that job. Governor Hochul, by the way, the reason that was such a narrow victory for her in 2022 in a state dominated by Democrats against Lee Zeldin is because Lee Zeldin made a point to focus on the crime problem in the Empire State. Crime was a huge part of his agenda. And Kathy Hochul, she thinks she's going to be positioned for national office. She actually thinks that she can run for president or maybe be a running mate or something.
Really?
And so she's already lining things up. She wants to win re-election in 26. So she did a big press event on, I think it was Friday, could have been Thursday, where she did she brought in cameras. She was standing on a subway platform. They did a little, like a performance art of her going through the turnstile and talking to the camera about everything she's done to make subways safer. Here, listen, it's cut 10 here, Michael.
I'm on the subway train heading out to Queens Center. I have a lot of, not quite last minute, but I have holiday shopping to do. I've got an adorable 2-year-old granddaughter, so it's a lot more fun to shop. I can take the subway wherever we need to go. And I want all New Yorkers to feel safe, which is why we've added so many more National Guard, over 250 more people that'll make sure that your ride is as safe as it can be.
There you go. See, look at me. I'm riding the subway. I've got my adorable 2-year-old granddaughter with me. We're going shopping. You can do this, too. It's perfectly safe. She tweeted out yesterday, this holiday season, we're hard at work for you. More money in your pocket, safer streets and subways for a stronger New York State. Of course, right alongside that tweet were tweets coming from the New York Post, Daily News, and New York Times that told a different story. New York Police Department searching for man who fatally set woman on fire in the subway. The woman was sleeping on a train car in Brooklyn Sunday morning when the man approached her, lit her aflame, and ran, police said. Actually, it's more despicable than that because we've now seen the security cameras from the New York platform.
Yes.
He didn't actually run. He sat and watched for a while.
He watched it.
Patrice.
So from what I was understanding, eyewitnesses said, we're telling the police, you're looking for the wrong guy. He's literally like right there.
Yeah.
He was there watching the entire thing. This was, from what I understand, a homeless woman who was sleeping on the train, and this is an illegal migrant who did this to her. Stone cold, stone-faced.
The suspects...
Kathy Hochul, this is not a feather in her cap.
No, quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. Yeah, I'm sorry for jumping in. I just want to give the details. Sebastian Zapeta is his name. He is an illegal immigrant from Guatemala. I'm assuming that this is a person who came during the Biden administration because most of the illegal immigrants from Guatemala in New York came during that window. I guess it's theoretically possible, but we haven't gotten those details quite yet, or they haven't been widely known. Everything about this story is about the incompetence and neglect of Democrat leaderships in all of our major cities and states that are run by Democrats. Not only should this person not have been in the country, not only did he feel emboldened, because here's the thing, he knew, Patrice, that on a New York City subway, he could set a woman on fire and sit there and watch it, and someone like Daniel Penny would not jump in and intervene and stop him, because the message has been sent by the DA in Manhattan that if you're a good Samaritan and you try to stop violence on the subways, you're the one who will be arrested and face manslaughter or murder charges. And thirdly, this woman should have never been allowed to live on the subway and sleep on the subway and be a criminal vagrant in the first place. If New York actually had any level of compassion or competence, they would have been put this person, as Rudy Giuliani did, in a public-private partnership charity homeless ward where the person could get cleaned up, could get mental health. That's what Giuliani did when he was mayor. But, of course, the left came into New York, and they fixed all those problems by letting people live on the streets. Everything about this is evil and despicable. And Kathy Hochul, as far as I can see, has had nothing to say about it after celebrating the new safer subways in New York.
Well, you know, it's so funny, the gaslighting. Let's go back to her tweet that you read. This holiday season, we're hard at work for you. More money in your pockets, safer streets and subways, a stronger New York State. More money in your pocket? How? when inflation, the inflation rate may have come down, but prices are still high. And frankly, taxes are about to rise. Safer streets and subways, we've already debunked that lie. But that's what they do. They deny the facts. For how long has Kathy Hochul and Democrats in New York and across the country said that, oh, there's no crime problem. Crime is down. Crime is down from 2020. They held up that line for I don't know how long, and making you feel like you're crazy for believing your eyes when your eyes were telling the truth and they were lying.
Patrice,
the gaslighting still continues.
I know that you live in the world of economics and
truth?
Financial policy. Again, truth and financial policies. So you may have missed this. When she says more money in your pockets, it's this proposal that she's put forth, an inflation refund. I kid you not. Part of the 2025 State of the State affordability agenda, she wants to give a $3 billion in direct payments to 8 million New York taxpayers that would look like a $300 to $500 refund, which is really just government spending that will increase inflation in New York.
Oh, that's
I kid
asinine.
you not. That's what she means by more money in your pockets. The economy is terrible, so we're going to give you money we don't have to make you feel good for a week and a half, and that will actually make the matters worse. So that's Democrats fixing things.
That's government policy for you. There you go. Democratic policy.
624. 627 now, and there's so much to discuss on this issue, specifically with New York and the Guatemalan illegal immigrant who set this woman on fire. But let's talk about the politics of it real fast here, because things are interesting in New York, just like we just discussed with John Fetterman in Pennsylvania. New York moved decidedly conservative in this last election, and if you, as I mentioned, Lee Zeldin had a chance to win. You see Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, saying, I welcome Trump and Homan in here. Let's deport these 80,000 we know of for sure, and then we'll take a look at the rest. I mean, there's obviously a tide turning even in New York. Is it going to turn red? Of course not. But Kathy Hochul is politically vulnerable right now. And this is, I think, the most interesting angle of this politically.
Yes.
She put out a Instagram photo of herself taking a selfie with two women on the subway. And she said, in March, I took action to make our subways safer for the millions of people who take the trains each day. And she, making political hay about this. That was highlighted by a politician in New York, put out on the X platform. And that politician put that picture out there and said 2 hours ago, Kathy Hochul took a victory lap for making subways safer. She congratulates herself on the same day 2 subway riders were stabbed in Queens, one in the face and one in the chest, and another was barbarically burned alive. Has there ever been a more tone-deaf governor in the history of New York? That politician that tweeted that out is a Democrat, Patrice.
Wow.
Democrat Congressman Richie Torres, who has moved away from his party on Israel and on some of the radical agenda items that Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez has tried to promote in Congress. Richie Torres, a Democrat, running to the right of Kathy Hochul, saying that she is the most tone-deaf governor in the history of the state. This is an interesting, between Eric Adams distancing himself from the governor and now Richie Torres, it's going to be a bloodbath politically in that state as the knives are out.
Totally. I saw this tweet here that just says New York was closer than even Texas. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the realignment.
Coming up, what happened at George Mason University, and is there really terrorist cells, radical Islamic Iran-funded terrorist cells in our backyard? David May joins us next. 6:36 on this 23rd day of December. We're getting close, man. Christmas Eve, and we hope you're all fired up and ready to go like we are. We love this week. It's always great to be live and local and right here for you all through these special times. And joining us, and by us I mean myself and Patrice Onwuka, who is jamming to Charlie Brown Christmas right now. Nice. Coming up at 7:05, Joe DeGeneva will join us. At 7:35, Trevor Maddich on a Christmas gift of a loss for the Eagles and a victory for the Command Skins yesterday. And then at 8:35, Susan Paricchio of the Washington Times. Patrice Onwuka's here, Larry O'Connor's here, and joining us right now, Talk about a really disconcerting story right in our backyard. He's the research manager, senior research analyst at Foundation for Defense of Democracies, one of the few organizations around here that tells the truth still about the very real threat of radical Islamic terrorism. He's David May. David, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
David?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, you're breaking up, dude. I'm not sure what your connection sounds like, but you may have moved in the room you're in from when we first connected with you. Can you just check in one more time real fast? Hello?
Sure, yeah. Can you hear me?
That is better. That is better, and we will work with it. All right, tell me the details. FBI arrested some students that certainly appeared to be plotting a terror attack, and this is at George Mason University. What did they find, and what was this plot?
Sure, yeah. So they arrested, it was an Egyptian student who plotted an attack against the Israeli consulate. He had apparently strong affinity towards jihadist groups, and he had said some things that had concerned people, so they reported him, and the FBI, in an investigation, determined that he was trying to blow up or trying to attack the Israeli consulate. And then separately, there was also another incident involving two George Mason students that were involved in a group that had called for a student intifada being a word that connotes violence against Israel. And so the police actually got a warrant to search their house. They found weapons, and they also found materials calling for death to Jews.
Oh, goodness. I mean, so it's interesting that you have these two separate incidences with three students plotting attacks at George Mason University. Is the university saying anything in response? Is there a reason? Is it just happenstance that these students are there, or is it unique to the university?
Unfortunately, this is not unique to George Mason. There's been issues across the United States, but George Mason is one of the universities that's under a Title VI investigation for basically allowing anti-Semitism to flourish in their university and not doing enough to protect their students.
You said this student in question is of Egyptian origin. Were they born here in the United States? Are they a naturalized citizen? Or are they a foreign exchange student? Do we have details like that? And if in fact it is a foreign exchange student or somebody who just came here on a student visa, what does this tell us about the vetting process involved?
My understanding is that he's a foreign exchange student. I'm not sure about the vetting process, but it seems that the person was obsessed with jihad and with carrying out terrorist attacks. There's obviously an overlap between maybe some mental health issues and something else, but it is pretty disconcerting that someone is coming to this country and then expressing support for terrorism.
Yeah. Well, and listen, I'm happy that the FBI was able to intervene here and make arrests before anything horrific happened, but do we know the circumstances under which the FBI was able to do this? 'Cause, I'm shocked to learn that the FBI is even looking at stuff like this, considering it seems like they spend a lot of time finding out what language Catholics use when they go to Mass. So was there a tip here, do we know? Or is the FBI actually doing what we thought they were doing, which is some real counterterrorism work here that just doesn't get the kind of attention in our politically correct DEI society?
My understanding is that they were tipped off that this person had been expressing support that had concerned some people, and so based off that tip, they then carry out an operation to they presented themselves as though they were terrorist sympathizers themselves, and he expressed that support to an FBI agent.
And Patrice, I want to hand it over to you, but I just want to comment real fast that, so were it not for this tipster, who in many places, in many circumstances, don't want to say something like this lest they be called, an Islamophobe or in some way they become targeted for harassment or bullying. But the FBI learned about it because of a tipster who saw something and said something. It's not like the FBI, had monitored searches or they were looking at, others, all those tools that we're told they have to be able to root out these people. No, this was good old-fashioned, American with their eyes on the ball saying something, hey, this guy looks like he's a problem, and then the FBI did their job.
You know, what's interesting, too, is just you started out with earlier when you're talking about this, David, which is just on campuses, the lack of universities' will to crack down on this anti-Semitism. Talk to us, though, about the BDS movement, this boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, you know, on these college campuses that seem to be saying, you know, against Zionism, against Israel, and somehow that's a rallying cry for the oppressed, when in fact it's really probably a terrorism, maybe indoctrination tool.
Yeah, so BDS, the campaign, is part of a broader campaign to destroy Israel. It's one front in a multi-front effort. In 2005, when they came out with their official launch, the first signatory was a group of Palestinian terrorist groups, and so that's the forefront of this campaign. Their goal in the United States is because Israel is far, so now they're trying to make Israel and Jewish students unsafe in their homes, and so that's when we've heard calls to globalize the Intifada. That's why it's very concerning when people are caught with weapons and plots to destroy or to attack Israel and to attack Jews here in the United States.
Yeah, like when terrorists tell you what they're going to do, maybe we should pay attention and take them seriously. And those signs that we did see all last summer, that summer of love on college campuses, when they said globalize Intifada, this is what it looks like. A terror cell right here in George Mason University, thwarted, thank God. David May, thanks for joining us for Foundation for Defense of Democracies. It is 6:43.
So we've got some critter news here, Larry. This is gonna.
Is this really critter news? Are you really?
It is. Yes.
Right.
Okay, so let's read the headline. Rest in peace, Crocodile Dundee star has passed away. Now, Crocodile Dundee star...
You realize that he's not actually a crocodile, right? That was just his name.
Well, no, we're not talking about the actor. We're talking about the actual crocodile in the movies.
Oh,
so
see, here I thought this poor Australian dude died, Paul Hogan.
Yeah, no, not Paul Hogan. Paul Hogan's co-star, well, not co-star, because the co-star was a woman, but the crocodile who served in the films, he has died. His name was Bert. Bert was a 700-kilogram monster crocodile, and he was estimated to be over 90 years old. So, R.I.P. Bert. Bert is a Crocosaurus cove, a crocodile herpetarium. That's about the extent I know of crocodiles. But Bert has passed away at the ripe old age of over 90 years old.
And I'm sorry, how much did Bert weigh?
700 kilograms. So what is that?
That's 1,500 pounds for those of us in the United States of America.
Thank you very much for the quick math there.
Who don't buy into this metric stuff. It's never going to happen. Stop trying to make it happen. So he was 90, which, by the way, means he was older than Paul Hogan, who was 85. Still is 85, but I should stop speaking in past tense. We're going to confuse people. Paul Hogan, the actual Crocodile Dundee, who is not a critter, by the way, is still alive and kicking, and Australians love him so much because if you ever meet an Australian and you're an American of a certain age like I am, within 5 minutes you're asking them if you can throw another shrimp on the bobby. And let me just tell you something. Australians really love that. They love it when you say that. Oh, yeah. There's nothing better for an Australian than to have you tell them that you want to put another shrimp on the bobby. That's what Paul Hogan made famous, actually. All right, so we're mourning the death of a 90-year-old crocodile.
Yes, we are.
Because that's critter news. I'll be
well,
honest,
and we're thinking...
I barely even remember the crocodile in the movie. I just remember the dude and
well, let's talk about the greatness of those iconic 80s movies, like Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah.
Now, see, even I can tell you about Crocodile Dundee because it was one of the few movies that I was able to watch that was more of an adult-ish movie, but still interesting.
A couple of adult moments there when he
I had to cover my eyes, yes.
Two of them were falling in love with each other and things got a little racy, but sure, yeah. But it was all good-hearted fun. He was kind of a cool
all
dude.
good-hearted fun.
And, boy, you talk about, I know he's from Australia, but, that you talk about setting up an American dream. He fashioned this whole thing. He fashioned the character. He fashioned the film. He did the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. And then, of course, divorced his wife after he became a big star and married his co-star, which is also apparently the Hollywood way to go.
Happens.
It happens too often with these people. Back to Bert. Bert?
Yes.
His name is Bert. Who names a crocodile Bert?
Well,
Bert
Reynolds, obviously.
16 feet long.
Yeah.
And what is the difference between a crocodile and an alligator?
The water temperature, right? One
know.
lives in cooler temperatures.
I thought
water
the difference was
than others.
the difference is in the snout. I thought, just in terms of the physical difference, the snout and the flippers they use or something. See, I should have researched this before we went on. But I'll be honest with you.
We're getting a thumbs up here.
I saw the headline and I spent more time researching Paul Hogan than I did Bert the crocodile, to tell you the truth.
Well, the headline was clickbait. But here is a sad note from the Minister of Parks and Wildlife, Marie-Claire Boothby. She said, Bert was a true icon of the territory, obviously featuring in Crocodile Dundee. It was very sad to hear, and I think the Territorians right across the territory would be feeling quite sad about this.
Yeah.
Let's see. We heard at 4 a.m. we received a call from the security guard. He, God bless his cotton socks, gave chase and 2 suspects decamped. This is apparently he was obviously all teens tried to get in and tried to get to him, but it's a sad time in Down Under.
Time in Crocodile Land. And the morning show commenced in Australia. I'm not trying to downplay it, but he lived a good long crocodile life.
And 90 years. And he was a star.
Part of a thing called Crocosaurus Cove. He became a fierce and fascinating ambassador for crocodile education. Did he? Was that his really? Oh, okay. He showed up and said, I'd like to be an ambassador for crocodile education. No, you exploited poor Bert in his old age. You made him become an ambassador for crocodile education. He was known for his independent nature. He was a confirmed bachelor, an attitude he made clear during his earlier years at a crocodile farm. In other words, he was a bit of a man whore. Not man.
You mean he got around?
He got around.
He got around the swamp.
He got around, just like Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. And and there it is. There it is. So rest in peace, Bert the crocodile. Paul Hogan, the actual Crocodile Dundee, is alive and well. And that's all we got for you at 6:53. All right, coming up, we're getting a firmer picture on some of these nominees that President Trump has made for his cabinet, including Kash Patel and Pam Bondi in Justice. We'll talk to Joe DeGeneva about that and about some of these executive orders that are being floated. And will federal employees work from within to resist the Trump agenda? And what can Trump do to stop that? Joe DeGeneva on all that coming up now.